We will now call the February 10th, 2025 special call meeting and public hearing number 3 on the intent for the Atlanta Board of Education to opt out of the statewide adjusted base year ad valorem tax exemption established under HB 581 to order. Ms. Harrison, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Representing Educational District 1, Ms. Katie Howard.
Present.
Representing Educational District 2, Ms. Aretta Bowden.
Present.
Representing Educational District 3, Dr. Ken Zeff.
Present.
Representing Educational District 4 and Board Vice Chair, Ms. Jennifer McDonald. I would like to note she's on Zoom. Representing Educational District 5 and Board Chair, Ms. Erica Mitchell.
Present.
Representing Educational District 6, Mr. Toten Pace.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large, Seat 7, Mr. Alfred Shivy Brooks.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large, Seat 8, Ms. Cynthia Briscoe Brown.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large, Seat 9, Ms. Jessica Johnson.
Present.
Also present, I would like to note we have Superintendent Dr. Brian Johnson, as well as Madam General Counsel, Ms. Nina Gupta. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Is there a motion to approve the February 10th, 2025 special call meeting and public hearing number 3 and final hearing for the purpose opt out of the HB 581 homestead exemption agenda?
So moved.
Properly moved by Board Member Briscoe Brown, second by Board Member Baldwin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So at this time, we will start our public hearing. The floor is open for those who choose and wish to speak on the purpose of opt-out of the statewide homestead exemption established under HB 581. But first, we would like to call Dr. Bracken up to lead the discussion.
Great. Good morning, Board Chair Mitchell, members of the board, Dr. Johnson. So today we are at our third and final public hearing for opting out of the statewide exemption offered in House Bill 581. The homestead exemption would cap property value increases for homesteaded properties and limits the revenue growth to the prior year's consumer price index. We do have an opt-out provision that was built into this legislation, and it is our recommendation that we do opt out. The average revenue loss for APS would be between $20 and $30 million in the first year, and that does compound annually. The large decrease in revenue would significantly impact students, faculty, and staff. APS is already heavily reliant on local revenue and facing significant budgetary challenges for FY 2026. The district aims to reduce the reliance on fund balance. The current year's FY 2025 budget is approved to use $74 million of fund balance. APS approved significant compensation increases for FY 25, including an average 11% increase for teachers. This is a multi-year investment that will continue to fund ongoing. The rising costs and capped revenue growth, APS is approaching the FY 26 budget cycle with plans to curb spending and setting expectations across the district for a leaner budget development process going forward. We do have a history of working for relief for taxpayers. We increased the homestead exemption from $30,000 to $50,000. It is still at $50,000 for homesteaded properties. We have reduced the millage rate from 21.74 to 20.74 in 2018, and again in 2022 from 20.74 to 20.5. Those who already have an exemption will continue to receive those benefits going forward. I can take any questions that you might have.
Board Member Briscoe Brown.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the commercial digest? We had some conversation about that at a previous meeting, and I think that was very helpful for the public to understand.
Sure, yeah. So it has been historically that our commercial digest has been undervalued in the city, and so not only is it undervalued, but it is appealed at a much higher percentage than our residential properties currently homesteaded residential properties, the appeal rate is about 12%. For our commercial properties, it's over 40%. The appeal process, as it currently stands, once the property has been appealed, is locked in at those values for 3 years. And so not only are the values being underassessed, but they're being locked in at lower values too for multiple years in a row. We've heard some great feedback and recommendation from our prior two public hearings, and are working with our representatives now on what sort of legislation we could support around both increasing property values for commercial and also providing additional relief for residential properties.
And I think municipalities can also opt out of this.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is the city of Atlanta opting out?
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
I read that in the newspaper, so.
I'm not sure, but I'll check.
Thank you.
Just, I believe it's my understanding that they are opting out, is my understanding as of right now.
That's what I thought, yeah. Along with the vast majority of school districts in the state.
That would be correct. The majority, so the majority of the state is opting out, but then just about all of the metro Atlanta school districts are opting out.
Do we have a number on how many other school districts are opting out? The last one I saw was like 130 out of the 180 or something like
Yeah,
that.
I'm not sure on the exact number, but it is the vast majority.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Briscoe Brown, I'll get that number. I had it in a text message with the other school districts, so I'll get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Board Member Pace.
Thank you, Dr. Bracken. Just as best you're able, given the kind of recommendation, if you will, from the district to opt out, as best you're able, high level, what flexibility does opting out afford the district?
Mm-hmm.
And if we were not to opt out or opt in, what restrictions would that place on the district?
Sure. So opting in or doing nothing would cap our property values at the CPI rate from the previous year. And so that fluctuates, could be as low as 1%, 2% growth. It could be on the higher side of that as well. However, it does constrain our planning for our budget because our just as indicated in the last few years, our salary increases has far exceeded the CPI. What is going on in the salary market is not indicative of what's going on in the price of eggs, right? So it would keep us from being able to be more competitive around things like salary compensation. Also, once you opt in, it's forever. So there is no opportunity for us to go review going forward how we would need to leverage revenue. The tool at the disposal of the board is the millage rate, and that is a blunt instrument that raises or lowers the millage for every property in Atlanta. So that is a tool that is at your disposal, but it doesn't allow you to give very targeted assistance. So what is available to us and what we've leveraged in the past few years is working with the representatives across the street to put in place relief that is targeted to seniors, targeted based on income, locks in homesteaded properties, so that we can both continue to rely on the local revenue, which is over 76% of our revenue, and plan accordingly, while also giving relief in areas that impact our mission, which is, making sure that our families have stability, that they can afford their homes. And also, this bill doesn't allow any relief for our renters, which is a huge portion of the people that we support, and we would want to make sure we're providing stability for. So as we're continued to think about how we can lean in and offer that targeted support, I think we're looking at more broadly than what the millage rate would be able to do across the board.
Board Member Dr. Zeff.
Thank you, Dr. Bracken. I wonder, why do they set the inflation rate as the cap for this bill when the main costs that we have are people, and the main cost driver on people's individual balance sheets is real estate? Why is it set to to inflation instead of real estate, which is the main cost driver that people face.
I can't speak to why the bill was written the way it is, but I think what you are seeing is why most school districts are opting out, because CPI is not a great indicator of what our cost is actually going to be year to year. Our supply budget is
Small.
a fraction of our overall budget. And so it's just not a good way for us to be able to expect or be able to control our expenditures against a revenue line item.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, one more.
Any, okay. Board Member Scobrown.
I'm sorry, one more, because this is actually one that we talked about last week that I've gotten some emails saying, oh, I didn't understand that. Can you talk a little bit about TADS and the impact of TADS, particularly, we haven't approved a TAD in a very, very long time, since I've been on this board. And I know how previous boards tied our hands by entering into these TADs. So could you talk a little bit about the impact of the TADs on our budget?
Sure. So we participate in 9 of the 10 TADs across Atlanta. TADs are tax allocation districts. And these are typically, 30-plus year commitments that the board enters into with the city. And in those areas, our tax increment, so the amount on your tax bill that says APS, is actually reinvested to pay off debt within developmental cost debt within those TADs. So we don't actually collect that amount that's on those bills back to APS. The TADs alone are about 2.4 mils worth of our millage rate. So if our millage rate is 20.5, it would be 18.1 if we were able to fully collect back all of the money that we are currently levying with our millage inside the TADs. And so that's one that we're just continuing to monitor. A lot of our investment in those TADs is due to phase out over the next few years. We'll start having TADs start closing. We have negotiated an IGA, or an intergovernmental agreement, with the city in 2019 that does put a finite date on our commitment to the TADs, and so we just want to make sure that we are monitoring that. And that's another place where we have a lot of flexibility when we plan our multi-year, is when we do know that local revenue will increase because a TAD closes. That's an opportunity for us at that time to do some additional tax relief or to consider the millage. That's when you would want to use that blunt instrument to be able to return dollars back to the taxpayers.
Okay, thank you.
And I do have that number. It's 120 counties.
120 out of how many?
180.
180, so
Districts.
two-thirds.
Yeah, two-thirds.
Two-thirds of school districts.
Correct.
are
School
opting
districts,
out.
not county, school
Yeah,
districts, yes.
two-thirds of school districts in Georgia are opting
Opting
out.
out.
And I would add that some of the rural districts, this is not a binding cap for them.
No.
So this is not a hard pill to swallow, because the property digest isn't rising faster than inflation.
Right.
And I would also say that though there are quite a few counties that are the numbers are more than flipped on their state allocation. So these are districts that are highly dependent on their QBE allocations. And so again, just the changes in the local might not even be, that juice might not be worth the squeeze for those. Whereas for metro districts that are highly, highly dependent on that local revenue, a cap would really constrain our ability to operate in the way that we have in the past.
And Chair, I was looking as you were. So for metro districts, Marietta, Clayton, DeKalb, Beaufort City, Fulton, and Douglas. So just about all in the metro are taking this approach.
Thank you, Dr. Brackett. I hear no further questions. Now we will begin public comment.
Good morning, and welcome to the public comment portion of today's agenda. In just a few moments, the board will begin hearing from those who properly signed up to speak by 9:50 a.m. Those who have properly signed up would have received an email confirmation. The board welcomes your comments, But before we get started, please take note of the following guidelines on how public comment is conducted. The board has allocated 1 hour for public comment, and each speaker will only be allowed to speak once for a total of 2 minutes. The board may elect to hear community comments in any order or sequence consistent with board policy and is not limited by the order of sign-up sheets. All speakers presenting highly detailed information are asked to put their comments in writing and submit via our Let's Talk platform under the topic Board of Education. In order to maintain meeting decorum, follow appropriate protocols, protect the confidentiality of students, and ensure impartiality, the board will not hear comments on matters involving individual students, parents, or the character, professional competence, or the physical or mental health of any individual. Also, the board will not hear public comment on personnel matters that specifically include the names or titles of employees. This includes contract non-renewals, position abolishment, the hiring or firing of staff, and investigative proceedings regarding allegations of misconduct. Comments regarding personnel issues should be sent in writing to the Atlanta Board of Education, 130 Trinity Avenue Southwest, Atlanta, Georgia, 30303, or via email at boardcomments@atlantapublicschools.us. Finally, in order to maintain meeting decorum and to ensure all comments can be heard by the board, applause, cheering, jeering, or speech that defames individuals or stymies or blocks meeting progress should be refrained from and may be cause for removal, adjournment of the meeting, and/or suspension from attending future Atlanta Board of Education events, hearings, meetings, and other proceedings. If any individual disrupts the meeting, the board chair or designated board member will issue a warning to cease the disruptive behavior. If the disruptive behavior continues, the individual will be asked by the board chair or designated board member to leave the meeting and may be escorted out by security personnel if necessary. With that said, I would like to call the following speakers to the microphone. Councilwoman Mary Norwood, followed by Julian Gunder.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be here with y'all today. I'm here to ask you not to opt out of the homestead exemption. The city of Atlanta has a homestead exemption. Fulton County has a homestead exemption. I have taken advantage of both of those. The school board does not. We, in our part of town and in every part of town, the city of Atlanta is becoming more and more desirable. So we have seen enormous increases in the assessed values of our properties. As you know, a property is an unrealized asset. We get no money from a property unless we give up our home and we sell it. So it is tremendously difficult for our citizens to pay the increases in taxes that we have been paying over the past several years. I am working right now with our CFO, and we will have a public awareness campaign on getting people to sign up for the City of Atlanta's exemption and for Fulton County's exemption. I went through all the websites over the weekend, and am working with the CFO, just sent me another message to say that, yes, he has gotten all of these requests, because it's confusing. What's on the web in Fulton County is confusing. But what we have right now are two things that the citizens are talking to me about. One is, do not opt out. We need the school board to provide relief to our citizens. Almost half of our taxes, and in some cases over half of our taxes, go to our school board. So y'all get it. The city in Fulton County splits the other half. But you get the lion's share, and it is a tremendous amount of money. And I know you have a very important job. I understand that. We all want to educate children well. But there is a point at which people all over the city are having to leave their homes because the taxes have been so
Thank you, Councilwoman
outrageous.
Norwood. That is your time.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Julian Gunder, followed by Kevin Summers.
Good morning. So I'm here because I'm concerned about the teacher shortage. We know that it's difficult to retain teachers. So essentially, I'm really here because I have a solution for the teacher shortage. Again, my name is Julian Gunder. I have a company called Gunder Global Recruiting. And what we do is we find teachers from all over the world in different parts of America to potentially work here in Atlanta. So what I'm doing here is to try to find out what is the best way for me to work with APS to essentially get rid of that teacher shortage, get some more teachers in here who have the qualifications and the desire and the enthusiasm to teach our students, because as we know, as the teacher shortage grows, it makes it difficult to retain teachers and it makes education way more difficult for our students, right? So I'm wondering, what is the best way for me to do that? Is there a process, or is there a particular person I should be in touch with to help alleviate this shortage for our students? What's that?
Mr. Gunder, we can't respond.
Okay.
However, we can talk to you after the meeting.
Okay. Is there any particular person I should speak with after the meeting? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kevin Summers?
Good morning, and thank you all for, hearing this. I'm grew up on a farm in South Carolina, and I've been in corporate America for 30 plus years, running companies as a CIO like Coca-Cola, Lowe's, and Whirlpool. And most recently, I've run my own company. I moved to Valley Road back on 2012, and my taxes were about $60,000. And now they're $120,000. And my mom was a school teacher for 35 years. So she retired from the school system in South Carolina. So I understand the importance that you all do. But when it comes down to staying in Valley, as I get older, and I'm not running in a big corporation, I just can't afford a double in my taxation for unrealized value. Moving in there in 2012 was a great investment for my family and I. And we're at this point as the taxes continue to increase with no caps. It's just unbearable, and we have to be forced to move out because of those taxes. And that happens. I did a lot of investments early on in real estate in Grant Park and different places like that. And people were forced out because of taxes. It's the same thing that's happening in Valley Road for me, and sometimes people who look like me. So I'm just asking you guys to opt in and at least put a cap like the other two parts of the community have done as well. And in a lot of cases, I've just learned this morning from Mary that those two homestead exams wasn't even communicated to me. So I'm sitting there paying even more because it wasn't communicated to me in terms of options. So thank you all for hearing, at least for me, and considering the opportunity to opt in.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Madam Chair, that concludes our public comment.
Thank you, everyone, for your comment today. Madam General Counsel, if there's a reason for the board to retreat into executive session.
Yes, Madam Chair, the board needs to discuss a legal matter.
Thank you. Is there a motion to enter into executive session to discuss student discipline, personnel, legal, or real estate?
So moved.
Properly moved by Board Member Briscoe Brown. Second by Board Member Pace. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.